Hey, guess what? What?
It is I, Rebex! Hey peeps, what's happening? It's RipperX. As Sir Richard Garriott would say, we have some amazing stuff to share in this edition of Update of the Avatar. This game's going to be pretty sweet. I'm pretty stoked. Again, Richard Garriott, Mr. UO himself, has a pretty good track record with MMOs, and he seems to always do something original and different and unique, which is a pretty big thing in this industry. Just because, in my opinion, in the last 5 or 6 years, I think a lot of games have just been recycled. So it's nice to see something new. I'm very excited for it. I'm very happy with the basements. That's going to be pretty awesome. Again, I really needed more space anyways in an online game world. I needed more space, so I think a basement would help with that. Anyways, let's get to the meat of it. Let's get to the juice. Will Shroud of the Avatar be a success? I put my vote out there. I say yes, it will be. I think you have some legendary veterans working on a game like this. It's going to be pretty good. It's going to be unique. Now let's take a quick look at RTX 2013. There is some actual game footage of Shroud of the Avatar. Again, it's in very early alpha stages, and this was also low res, so it's not going to be high def or anything like that. That said, you can see some of the basic gameplay footage of Shroud of the Avatar. This was a showcase that Richard Garriott and the crew did at RTX 2013. I'm just going to show some quick clips just to show you guys some of the gameplay and what it looks like. It looks pretty impressive. I'm stoked. Let's check it out.
And you guys are the first people to see this demo, but please understand that that's what you're hearing. You're seeing a game 3 months into production. Maybe do a little bit of crafting, because a big part of what made Ultima Online, I think, so powerful and unique was that unlike most every other MMO where people are first and foremost the combatants, it's those non-combat roles that I think really what made UO special and what we're really trying to recapture here. And as we come into town, there's a tavern here on his right, Fire Lotus's Tavern. For those of you who've been following us in our blogs, you saw that being drawn in real time. We'll go back and visit Fire Lotus's Tavern here in just a minute. But back in here is he's playing as a knight here, so he's got a knight's house. There is his nice house, and this is a player home that a lot of you who have already been backers will actually get a house very much like this. Out here in the front yard, he has a couple of crafting stations. He's got a sawmill as well as a carpentry table. Let's see, do you have the supplies you need to do any carpentry yet? No, he doesn't. So actually, he might have a little bit. He's not supposed to have enough. But since he doesn't have what he needs, let's head off. Let's head off to the forest and see if we can get some logs to come back and use on the sawmill. And we're cheating a little bit to teleport out of town, by the way. So normally you would have to exit the town, we think. But here we are back outdoors, and even his movement speeds vary based on terrain. By the way, the roadways are very safe and you move very quickly. Off-roading is a little slower. The wood's a little slower. Like we mentioned, there's both the fixed points of interest, like the town or a dungeon. There's mobile points of interest you saw, like the animals, but also there's random encounters that can just pop up and based on the terrain type. You can go to any of those outdoor tiles you can zoom into and see it at a more detailed level. So that's what he just did here. Is he's just jumped right into this forest area. And sure enough, you got a little bit of wood off that tree. If he wants, he can see if we can harvest some more. And down goes the tree, so that means we've used up the resources available on that tree for now. But let's see if we can take this back to town and see what we can make. You might also hear that little buzzing sound. That's the Tesla tower that's over there. So a lot of the major cities that happen to be near easily available energy sources, falling water up in the top mountains for wind, geothermal locations, we're allowing those cities to offer a little better protection than some who don't have that level of technological advancement, shall we say. And so this town is, relatively speaking, free from invasion. The overrun of towns, including the ones where you live, is actually a big part of the storyline of this game, so real estate in this town might be a little more costly than some others. But here we're going to the sawmill. It pulls out a log or two on the sawmill, and by the way this works is, you notice he's not going to a recipe or a spell name or anything else. He's not going to a list of skills in his inventory. He's just putting out the ingredients that he thinks he would like to use in operating the equipment. So if you think of it, if you actually know the recipe, you should remember that, okay, it's if I put logs on the table, I get some boards. If I put boards on the table, I get some dowels. And then it's up to you to use the devices to create the subcomponents that you need in order to be able to make the new pieces. So I think he's gotten what he needs here off the crafting table. Off the sawmill. And now he'll go over to the carpentry table. And now with the carpentry table, he happens to, at least if I remember correctly, it takes 2 boards and 4 dowels to make a chair. And so he puts 2 boards and 4 dowels out on the carpentry table. Puts it to work, and he gets one little tiny chair stuck over in the corner, but you get the general idea. And so now he can take that chair back, and let's go explore his house, and let's see where we want to put down a chair and what the best place to have a sit might be. And by the way, since this is his house, you can redecorate everything you want, anywhere you want, not only within the structure of your house, but within the boundary of your owned property. So your ownership is a lot, and so that way you can put things in the garden and flags or totems or whatever you might want on the inside or the outside. But let's go back up on the top and just take a look around, and you can see through this town some of the different kinds of houses that people have. And I can see let's see, is there a wizard's tower over there somewhere? There's a wizard's tower. And there's a druid's house around somewhere else in view on one other side. But at least a few of the fun new forms of housing are beginning to go in as well. And here you can put the chair out, wherever strikes his fancy, and go have a seat. I don't know, for people who've played Ultimas, even the earlier Ultimas, sitting in chairs was always like one of the holy grails. It was always hard to do, especially in tile graphics, man, it was really hard. And so sitting was always a big deal for me. I mean, I know a lot of games do it these days, but you don't know how much I struggled to make sitting work in those early games. So here's the bartender, but one of my other critiques of a lot of MMOs is not only exclamation point over people's heads, but then the menu-based conversation. You just click on all the things that don't obviously piss somebody off, and then anything that's relevant will have been said, anything that's important to remember will be copied into your quest log. Well, in this case, he just talks. He's not invoking any form of conversation. There is no menu of any kind. You stand in front of the bartender and you say in English whatever you would like to say to that bartender. In this case, you said,
"Hi, my name is Chris."
And since he said, "Hi, my name is Chris," the bartender recognized that he was introducing himself and that he used his correct name as his introduction. So the bartender will now remember him by name. But you'll notice here we're having a full conversation in English with no conversation mode. No things being obviously flagged as the one thing you must remember. Nothing being copied into a quest log. It is literally a conversation, and what you make of it is up to you. And he says, "Yes, up in the dungeon." Yeah, thank you. And so now...
Such a cool story, bro.
And so basically the bartender says, "Hey, if you happen to go knock off that old lich, people around here would probably be very thankful." And so basically you've been told you've sort of been sent on a quest. But again, it's up to you. So in this case, let's go see if we can dispatch that lich and find that throne of bone and maybe bring it home and call it our own. So now we run out of town. And conveniently, there's a dungeon nearby. Watch out for the wolves. Okay, so now we're in the crypt, and we'll see if we can find our way down into the Lich's lair. And down here you'll see a variety of physics objects. You can kick the skulls around. You can open up all the different sarcophagi, see if you can find any items to loot or some other monsters jump at you. So you get a little bit of extra armor bonus here.
I think it's also worth mentioning the crowd sharing stuff that we're going to be doing, because this dungeon set will probably be one that we're going to share completely. Yes, that's a good point. When we're asking people to share art with us, for which anybody's art we use, we're paying them for that art. But we're also doing the reverse.
which is, we find that when we go look through, for example, at dungeon sets, it's actually pretty hard, even in looking at 3D asset stores, to find really good, complete modular dungeon sets that we think, are at the professional level. And so anything that we're having to go build because we can't get it crowdsourced, we're going to put right back into the community. So we're sharing our art back to all of you as a thank you for people also sharing art with us. That was one thing I meant to mention about combat. We actually have this is combat version 1, stand toe-to-toe and hit each other till you're dead. That is clearly not the concept we have for combat. Oh, and this is a puzzle that we ought to mention here too, by the way. This is, again, just an example of the puzzle solving we want to make sure we put into all of the scenarios of the game. This one is a puzzle where you have to turn all of these torches to red from the more sinister blue. And if you go around and do it in an efficient way, or not. So he's going to try to, each time you touch one of the torches, it turns some of its neighbors to various colors, and we'll see if he can't figure out how to. What you did? You got the door open on the far end of the room, but also he's now being attacked by the guards. But the combat that we're developing, oh, that's another very important thing to point out. Most MMOs, you see a lot of user interface on the screen. And you notice that the majority of this demo, you've seen effectively none. All you've seen at the bottom is usually your hit points and mana bar and an experience point bar underneath that. Now, while he's in combat, you see a little bit of a shortcut bar along there, but nothing in the shortcut bar yet. But that's our whole intention, is that nothing is on the screen unless it is absolutely necessary. We're trying to completely make the game as devoid of UI as possible. And, yeah, thank you. Here's a bit of a little spiky puzzle to try to get through. Monsters coming at him from the sides as well. Here is a sealed up passageway that he can break his way through. And sure enough, he's now found himself in the Lich's lair up there on the top. And behind the Lich, you might just be able to see through his smoky essence the throne of bones. And of course, we have we're in the primitive combat era of the game. So the Lich has yet to have his special attacks and special effects and things of that nature. But you at least can kind of see where we're headed. Oh, and the skeletons have followed you in. I have a suspicion you might not win this combat for the first time. Poor Lich. And by the way, for carrying things home, like perhaps this bone of throne that you might find up the staircase here, all items we're doing encumbrance and other things with them. We're trying to keep it as streamlined as simple, large, medium, small, and giant objects. But yes, you're allowed to carry that throne of bone home. But for today, to wrap up our little demo, why don't we just sit in it and take over the Lich's lair here? And sure enough, here. See you take it over.